করিতে শক্তি দেহনাথ যথা যথা। তবে তো গাইব হরি নাম সুখে পরাধ হবে হত। তবে তো গাইব হরি নাম সুখে अपराध हबे हत। गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। सकल सहाना करिते शक्ति निज मन स्पृहाहीना। सकल सहने बल दिया करो निज मन स्पृहाहीना। कबे हेनु कृपा लोभियाए जान कृतार्थ होइबे नाथा। जाना शक्ति बुद्धिहीना आमी अति दीना करो मोरे आत्मा साथ। शक्ति बुद्धिहीना आमी अति दीना करो मोरे आत्मा साथ। गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। सकल सहने बल दिया करो निज मन स्पृहाहीना। सकल सहने बल दिया करो निज मन। योग्यता विचारे किछु नहीं पाई तुमर करुणा सार। योग्यता विचारे किछु नहीं पाई सार। करुणा न होइले कांदिया कांदिया प्राण न राखिबो आर। न होइले कांदिया कांदिया प्राण न करुणा न होइले कांदिया कांदिया प्राण न राखिबो आरा। करुणा न होइले दिया कांदिया प्राण न राखी हो आरा। गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपेक्षतिहीना। सकल सहने बल दिया करो निज मन स्पृहाहीना। सकल सहने बल दिया करो निज मन स्पृहाहीना गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपिक अतिहीना गुरुदेव बिंदु दिया करो ए दासे तृणपिक अतिहीना। ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर, ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर, दयार सागर ए दासे करुणा कोरी। ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर, दयार सागर ए दासे करुणा कोरी। दिया पद छाया सोदो है माया तुम्हार चरण धोरी। दिया पद छाया शोधो है माया तुम्हार चरण धोरी। छाया वेग दोमी छाया दोष शोधी छाया गुण देहो दासे। हे छाया गुण छाया दोष शोधी छाया गुण दे। छाया सत्संग देहो है हमारे बोशेची संगेर आशे। सत्संग देहो है हमारे बोशेची संगेर आशे। ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर, दयार सागर ए दासे करुणा सागर। वैष्णव ठाकुर, दयार सागर ए दासे करुणा कोरी। दिया पद छाया शोध है माया तुम्हार चरण धोरी। कृष्ण से तुम्हार कृष्ण दीते पारो तुम्हार शक्ति आछे। कृष्ण से तुम्हार कृष्ण दीते पारो तुम्हार शक्ति आछे। कृष्ण से तुम्हार कृष्ण दीते पारो तुम्हार शक्ति आछे। आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली धाई तव पाछे पाछे। आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली धाई तव पाछे पाछे। आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली धाई तव पाछे पाछे। आमी तो कंगाल कृष्ण कृष्ण बोली धाई तव पाछे पाछे। ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर, दयार सागर ए दासे करुणा कोरी। वैष्णव ठाकुर दयार सागर हे दासे করুণা করি দিয়া পদ ছায়া শোধো হে আমায় তোমার চরণ ধরি দিয়া পদ ছায়া হে মামা দিয়া পদ ছায়া শোধো হে আমায় তোমার চরণ ধরি শোধো হে আমায় তোমার চরণ ধরি हो हे वैष्णव ठाकुर दयार सागर हे दासे করুণা করি ঠাকুর দয়ার সাগর হে দাসে করুণা করি এইবারও করুণা করো এইবারও করুণা করো वैष्णव गोसाई करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई हे बारो करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई पतित पावन तोमा बिन के होना दूरे जाई कटे गेले पाप दूरे जाई ए मन दयाल प्रभु के हो कोथा पाए प्रभु के भाको था पाए बारो करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई पतित पावन तुम बिन के हो नाई वन तुम गंगार परश होइले पश्चाते पावन होइले गंगार परश होइले पश्चाते पावन परश होइले दर्शने पवित्र करो এই তোমার গুণ পবিত্র তোমার দর্শনে পবিত্র করো এই তোমার গুণ পবিত্র করো এই তোমার এইবার করুণা করো वैष्णव गोसाई करुणा करो गोसाई पतित पावन तुमा बिन के हो नाई पीने के हो ना हरि स्थाने अपराधे तारे हरि नाम हरि स्थाने अपराधे तारे हरि नाम अपराधे तारे हरे नाम तुम स्थाने अपराधे नहीं परित्राण स्थाने अपराधे परित्राण तुम स्थाने अपराधे नहीं परित्राण अपराधे এইবারও করুণা করো বৈষ্ণব গোসাই पतित पावन तुम बिन के हो नाई तुम बिन के हो तुमर हृदये सदा गोविंद विश्राम दोये सदा विश्राम तुम्हार हृदये सदा गोविंद विश्राम सदा गोविंद कहे नामोरा वैष्णव परायण गोविंद को है ना पराण वैष्णव परान एबारो करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई न करो वैष्णव पतित पावन तुम बिन के हो प्रति जन्मे कोरी आशा चरणेर धूली कोरी आशा चरणेर धूली प्रति जन्मे कोरी आशा चरणेर धूली कोरी आशा चरणेर धूली नरोत्तमे कोरो दया अपनार नरोत्तम करो दया अपनार बोली दया अपनार बोली बारो करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई गुना करो गोसाई बारो करुणा करो वैष्णव गोसाई ना करो वैष्णव गोसाई पतित पावन तुम बिन के हो ओ हे वैष्णव ठाकुर वैष्णव ठाकुर वैष्णव ठाकुर जय वैष्णव ठाकुर ठाकुर वैष्णव ठाकुर प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 पाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद
बड़ कृपा कइले कृष्णा अधमेर प्रति की लगिया नीले तो करो ये बेगति बड़ कृपा कइले कृष्ण अधमेरा पति की लगिया नीले तो रोए बेगति আছে কিছু কার্য তব এই অনুমানে নাহে কেন আনিবেন এই উগ্রস্থানে रजस्तम गुनेरा सबाई आच्छन्न वासुदेवा कथा रुचि नहीं से प्रसन्न तबे यदि तब कृपा हुई आही तो के सकल संभव होए तुमी से कौतुकी কিভাবে বুঝালে তারা বুঝে সেই রসা एत कृपा करो प्रभु करो निजा बसा तुम्हारा इच्छाए सब होए माया बसा तुम्हारा इच्छाए नश मायार पारस तब इच्छा होए यदि तांदेर बुद्धा বুঝিবে নিশ্চয় তবে কথা সে তোমার ভাগবতের কথা সে তব অবতার ধীর হইয়া শুনে যদি কান বারবার রজস্তম হতে তবে পাইবে নিস্তার হৃদয় ভদ্র সবে গুচিবে তাহা কি করব যাব কথা ভরসে হি চাহি ক্ষুদ্র আমি দীনহীন কোনো শক্তি নাই হাত চেনেছো প্রভু কথা বলিবারে যে তোমার ইচ্ছায় প্রভু করো এইবারে अखिल जगत गुरु वचन से अमर अलंकृत कोरी बर क्षमता तोमार तब कृपा होले मोरा कथा शुद्ध हवे सुनिय सबारा सुख दुख जे गुचिबे आनियाछो यदि प्रभु हमारे नाचते नचाओ नचाओ प्रभु, नचाओ से मते। काष्ठेर पुतली जथा, नचाओ से मते। भक्ति नाही वेदा, नाम खूब धरो। भक्ति वेदांत नमो, ये बेसार्थक। बड़ो कृपा कैले कृष्ण, हाथ मेरा प्रति।
Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the devotees for this auspicious festival on the disappearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. So now we'll be starting the program for the verbal offerings, and we request Nandulal Prabhu to please come for make the offering. And after that, request Achyutanand Prabhu to be ready. Hare Krishna.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, recently I was face to face with a staunch atheist, and because of cultural reasons, he was much senior to me in age and some other conditions. I did not have that privilege of arguing with him, and he was presenting his heartfelt objections to the existence of God, and he was saying how actually all these religions are bogus, and primarily so many sadhus, so many gurus in India, they basically sit on high dioceses. They sit on a very big seat, and in this way they make themselves inaccessible to anybody who objects to them, anybody who might want to argue with them. And he said, the way they sit on high dioceses, and then there's thousands of people sitting in front of them, and they give very emotional lectures, primarily focusing on faith, shraddha, and so on. And then what happens is, even if people like me, he's quoting himself, he's saying, even if people like me, even if they want to go and ask these big sadhus who are sitting up there some questions, I have a fear that if I challenge this big sadhu, then some people out of that audience, thousands of people assembled there, they might get up and manhandle me. They might actually beat me up. And they may say, how dare you ask a question to our Sadhu Maharaj like this? He was giving different arguments like this. And then he said, just in case I manage to circumvent all those audiences who might beat me up, and finally I come to some sadhu, some big sadhu seated up on the dais, and I ask him, what is the proof that God exists? What is the proof that what you are saying is true? The answer that sadhu will give me is, he spoke in Hindi, I'll speak it like that. He said, देख बच्चे, तू अभी बच्चा है, तू अभी छोटा है, तू अभी नादान है, थोड़ी श्रद्धा रख, थोड़ी भगवान पे भरोसा रख, धीरे धीरे भगवान तुझे कृपा देंगे, धीरे धीरे भगवान तुझे सब कुछ दिखा देंगे. So probably this is his experience. Maybe he has seen something like this. Maybe he has read something like this. And he is free to have his own opinion. But one thing that happened in the presence of this person is I started thinking about you. And I started thinking, did you start this institution sitting on a high dais? Were you inaccessible to common people to ask their questions? Were you inaccessible to people to challenge you? What is the proof of what you are saying? Sometimes in India there have been institutions, political and religious or spiritual also, where there is a big acharya, there is a big guru, and then he passes on to his successor. So he is the acharya, and then he says at one point of time, now I am leaving this world, and now he is my next acharya. So in one sense, just like in kings, there is Rajabhishek. So similarly, we could say in a spiritual institution, there is some kind of an inheritance from the acharya. But Prabhupada, in your case, was there some coronation ceremony held that your Guru Maharaj was the head of such a big matha? And then one day he said, from today onwards, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami will be my successor. No such place took place. You had to struggle on your own. There was no support from your family. There was no support even from your spiritual god brothers. There was no money you had. In one sense, you did not have any American dollars when you reached America. So what did you receive? You received struggle. You received that order, that faith that you had in your spiritual master's words. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 5, shloka number 76, purport. This is where, in the Sakshi Gopal story, he is saying that somebody who has faith in the Supreme Lord, he gets rewarded. And this is your purport. I would like to read it just for the reference of all assembled here. In the preaching work of the Krishna consciousness movement, we, as the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 4 times, Prabhupada, you use the word. As the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fully believe in the words of Krishna and his servants, the disciplic succession. In this way, we are presenting the words of Krishna throughout the world. Even though we are neither a rich man nor a very learned scholar, and even though we do not belong to any aristocracy, this movement is still being welcomed and is very easily spreading all over the world. Although we are very poor and have no professional source of income, Krishna supplies money whenever we need it. Whenever we need some men, Krishna supplies them. Thus it is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita 6.22, Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyade nadhikam tata. Actually, if we can attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, we do not need anything else. We certainly do not need those things which a mundane person considers to be material assets. So, I was just thinking about it, that what did you receive? You never received a high dais, you never received a position where you could just walk in, you had to earn it by yourself. This atheist was also speaking how all the sadhus, they keep speaking on Shraddha, faith, and they don't allow anybody to challenge them. And then I was thinking about some of your disciples who have mentioned their interactions with you. I remember His Grace Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, who grew up in a Catholic family in America. And he mentions how in his childhood days, once when he went to his religious place of worship, he asked the religious preacher there, who said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God said, let there be creation, and there was creation. So for God, he is very powerful and everything happens very smoothly. And little boy, he asked at father, if everything happens so fast and God is so powerful, what does he do all the time? Because God is eternal. Let there be creation. In one moment creation happens. So what does he do at all times? And the religious preacher of his country, of his faith, told him, this is the last time you're asking all these questions. Never ever ask any questions like this. Shut up. And he mentions how in his childhood, that was the last day when he went to that religious place of worship. And this particular person later met you. He asked so many questions, which was natural for him. And based on Canto 2, based on Canto 3, the process of creation, so many detailed knowledge of how creation happens. It's not 2 sentences. Let there be creation and there was creation. How there is Shabda, how there is Sparsha, how there is rupa, how there is rasa, and then is gandha. So everything is detailed, given in Srimad Bhagavatam, and you have given extensive purports to them. And this devotee later not only became your disciple, he became an initiating spiritual master. He carried on your legacy forward. And just some years back, he was appointed by the GBC to form a foundational document, Srila Prabhupada, the most preeminent Shiksha Guru. So I was just thinking, here was a person who was silenced by his faith, and here is a person, the same person, is now writing a book on how you are the Guru. So that must have transformed his heart. The atheist was also speaking how prominent gurus do not allow anybody to challenge them. And then I was thinking about so many instances in your life when you were challenged out in the open. I remember one incident in Sweden, near Stockholm, there is an Uppsala University. And when you were speaking there, devotees in their innocence, they had gathered many college students there and they had given you a high seat. Traditionally, a teacher, even if he's not a spiritual teacher, even a mundane teacher in schools, he gets a high seat. So they had arranged a high Vyasasan for you. And you were speaking about how society needs to be organized. And as you were speaking that, one very challenging student, Sweden happens to be communist in nature, so he raised his hand and said, okay, you are seated on a high dais and you are speaking about the first class men, second class men, third class men, and so on. Are you saying that you are first class? That you are advising everything to us? And Prabhupada, it is clearly mentioned, you look down and in a moment you mentioned, no, I am fifth class because I am your servant. So this reply did not come from your brain, it came from your heart. You actually felt that you are a servant of everyone and it is your service to guide others. I remember one incident where Brahmanand Prabhu, later Brahmanand Maharaj, he was sent to Africa, and when he was preaching in Africa, he was calling you again and again, and you said, you first establish the minimum preaching and I'll come there. And after 2 months when you went there, in the first visit, the first night when you slept, and your servant dried your clothes, the next day those clothes were missing. And in the lecture that you gave to the local devotees there, you found some of the devotees there wearing your clothes. And I was just thinking, what if a acharya goes to a place where his clothes are stolen? And not only they are stolen and people run away, they sit in his class listening from him. What happens to a person from Kolkata? What happens to a person who's born up in traditional situation? And I was really amazed that you did not get angry, you did not shout. In your class, you started laughing and you mentioned how actually we should respect our spiritual teacher and we should never ever steal anything from him. When you went to London, Srila Prabhupada, they just asked you a question, Swamiji, why have you come here? Actually, it's a very insulting question. When some guest comes to our home, we never ever ask, why have you come here? But the mood of the Londoners was, we have everything. We ruled over Indians, and now what are you going to offer to us? We have everything. We took it away from you. But Prabhupada, you never took it in an insulting way, and you told them in your compassionate way, actually, I have come here to give you what you have forgotten. You took away the diamonds and everything, but you forgot the spiritual culture. I have come here to give you that. So I was thinking, you never received a big dais. You never received Shraddha kind of questions. And in fact, you encouraged your followers to ask questions, and there are 2 books fully based on questions and answers, Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, and Civilization and Transcendence, where you are encouraging people to ask you questions. I was going through some purports in the Bhagavad-Gita. Bhagavad-Gita happens to be a foundational text, and that's the first book that you translated. So I checked, roughly 42 or 43 times I came across this term, science of God, science of spirituality, science of Krishna consciousness. And traditionally, culturally, outside ISKCON, if you present these 2 words together, actually they are antonyms. They will never ever coexist. In the outside world, spirituality is supposed to be very personal. Spirituality is supposed to be very subjective. People in Hindi, they keep talking, Mere Bhagwan, Aapke Bhagwan, your conception, my conception. And so many of who believe in religion, they're actually quite muddled up. So spirituality is always a very personal thing, a very emotional thing, a very sentimental thing, whereas science claims always to be very objective. For example, somebody's conception of God, in my college days when I came in touch with spirituality through your books, I used to sometimes talk with my friends in college, and one of my friends, I remember, he told me, see, you don't talk to me about God. God is basically X. In mathematics, they talk about X being an imaginary number. So for him, X is this, for him, X is this, for him, X is this, for you, X is Krishna. So that's okay, but you don't tell me what is God. So now science claims any experiment that is done in America, say chemical A plus chemical B, when they come together will give chemical C and chemical D. So science claims if this experiment is performed in America, it will give the same results as it is performed in Africa, as it is performed in Scotland, as it is performed in Australia, anywhere around the world. And that is the whole claim of science. We are giving you something that is not humbug. We are giving you something that is not imaginary. We have proof. It is duplicatable. Whereas spirituality generally tends to be a very personal experience. And so many times in the Gita, when I read about the science of Krishna consciousness, I then learn that you have given a process that was not applicable only in India, that was not applicable to people only born with a specific culture and some specific environment when they grew up. When you taught Krishna consciousness, you gave the same experiment success in America, in Africa, in Australia, wherever you went. And that's how only a person like you can claim to use these words of science and spirituality together. Nobody else can claim that. So you have not inherited a dais. You never ever gave threatening answers to those who asked you challenging questions. People who criticized you, you always accommodated them and gave them an answer in which they would be encouraged and go deeper into the science. And then you are giving us a process that was possible from 1966 to 1977 in your physical presence. And today, so many years later, we feel how so many of us here, I believe so many of my godbrothers here have never seen you physically. We never saw you when you were moving around on this planet, but we have so much love for you. In one sense, this proves that the science of spirituality is still there. So Srila Prabhupada, Lord Krishna, where does he exist? Now, all the Vedic scriptures, they say he stays in Vaikuntha, and Chaitanya Charitamrita gives such detailed descriptions how in Vaikuntha there is a planet of each avatar. The Matsya avatar has his own Vaikuntha planet. The Varaha avatar has his own Vaikuntha planet. Ayodhya, Saket Dham is there. Mathura, Vrindavan is there. But interestingly, if you ask Krishna where he stays, then Krishna says, Naham Tishtami Vaikunthe. So all the scriptures are saying Krishna stays in Vaikuntha, but Krishna says himself, Yatra Gayanti Mad Bhakta Tatra Tishtami Narada. So in that sense, we also need to ask, does Prabhupada stay in the deity form? Of course he stays in the deity form. Here you are in the deity form and we are speaking, looking at you. In some temples during Guru Puja, they take the deity of yours from the altar and take him around Pradakshina around the temple. So you stay in your deity form. But if we ask you where do you stay, then what is your answer? So many times in Lilamrita it comes, when devotees asked you, you said, I am not going to die. I am going to live in my books. I'm going to live in my books. So yes, you stay in the deity form, you stay in the hearts of those who are your genuine followers, but what is your address? Just like Krishna gave his address, Yatra Gayanti Mad Bhakta Tatra Tishtami Narada. Similarly, your address, Prabhupada, you have given to us, is you stay in your books. So it's very interesting how so many person-based institutions, spiritual institutions, they have been in India in the past, they are there even today. Many charismatic speakers are leading entire institutions by their own personality, single person. We don't know what happens to them after they leave this planet. They are doing so much in the role of Lord Brahma, but they have no connection with Lord Vishnu. And since they have no connection with Lord Vishnu, I believe there cannot be any maintenance in their institution. So there is creation, but there is no maintenance. And if creation happens and there is no maintenance, then eventually there has to be destruction. But you are so powerful. When you were personally existing in this world, you created everything single-handedly, and to maintain it, because you have a strong connection with Lord Vishnu, you also presented to us systems. You also presented to us entire structures like these temples. You emphasized on book distribution, but that did not stop you from... Okay, so this Jaya Anilo Premadhana time, requested to stop. Thank you so much. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Jayanilo prema dhana करुणा हेनो प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य गेला आचार्य कहा मोर स्वरूप रूप कहा कहा दास रघुनाथ पतित पावन पतित पावन कहा मोर भट्ट जुग कहा कबीराज कबीराज एका काले कोधा गेला गोरा नटराज गोरा नटराज पाषाणे कुटीबो माथा अनलेप शिवो गौरांग गुणेरा निधि कोथा गेले पाबो गेले पाबो से सब संगीर संगे जे कोई लोबिलास संगे जे कोई लोबिलास से संग न पाइया कंदे नरोत्तम दास कंदे नरोत्तम दास जे अनिलो प्रेम धन करुणा प्रचुर प्रेम धन करुणा प्रचुर हेनो प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्या ठाकुर हेनो प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य ठाकुर हेनो प्रभु कोथा गेला आचार्य ठाकुर जे अनिलो प्रेम धन करुणा प्रचुर धन करुणा प्रचुर
Hare Krishna. Dear Srila Prabhupada, just less than 1 hour ago, I just went across this street to meet one devotee. She is from Ukraine and she is 74 years old. She had come here, she is a widow last year, and for last 8 months she is in lockdown because she cannot come for darshan. I just went to tell her, tomorrow you can come. I but want to tell you her dedication for you and for Krishna. Last year when her husband died, she took one certificate from the government of Ukraine that she wants to come to India. And if she dies, anything happens to her, nobody should be informed. She is just going to land of Krishna to leave her body near Krishna. So going all around, she had come and now she's stuck there. For last 6 to 7 months, she's not able to come to temple. So she's just subsisting only on fruits and waiting when she would be able to come here and take darshan of Radha Gopinath and spend her whole life near them. She's just one of those devotees from such far-off places, Ukraine, and she's just not one. You have created thousands and thousands of them. When I went to Bhakti Sangam festival to Ukraine in 2016 with Jayapataka Maharaj, among 10,000 of such devotees, I was only 3 among 1 Indians. The rest were only Ukrainian devotees. And they also, like us, have not met you. They don't have the language connection, cultural connection. Like this lady, she is 74 years old. She does not speak English, doesn't understand any language. But to receive the grace of Radha Gopinath ji, she is willing to undergo any difficulties, like the tens of thousands in such countries which are so difficult to practice Krishna consciousness among government pressure and cultural differences. And I could see there, among tens of thousands of such devotees in such places, their dedication and faith in you. Only you could have done it, nobody else. So as I spend my time in Krishna consciousness, I forever feel more and more indebted and sheltered and understand and feel that unless I take deep shelter of yours, I cannot sustain or progress in my Krishna consciousness. Just to tell you that as much as possible, whenever I get a chance to hear while taking shower or something, I always listen only to your kirtan, because I know your simple kirtan that has changed the world is so difficult to also focus upon, but that nourishes my Krishna consciousness. And I will just read and finish one of my favorite songs or lyrics, which has been composed famously by His Holiness Japataka Maharaj, and who is for me very much, in summary, glorifies so many of her attributes and contribution to the world. This song is famous as Jadi Prabhupada na hoito. Jadi Prabhupada na hoito, tabe ki hoito, jivana bahite kise. Nitai Gaurer apar karuna, kedita sakala dese. If Srila Prabhupada had not come, what would have happened? How could we have passed our lives? Who else would have distributed the unlimited mercy of Lord Nityananda and Lord Gauranga all over the world? Paschyatyarajata papi durachari, sunyabadi mayabadi, tader uddhar karibare, manahena kon dayanidhi. Which other compassionate person would have endeavored to deliver the miscreants, sinful, impersonalistic and voyeuristic people in the West? Tadera nikate kon jana asi bilaite harinam, sabhya jiva rupe gadite tadera ke haite aguya. Who else would have come to distribute harinam to them? Who else would have come forward to transform them into civilized beings? Deshe deshe hari vigraha seva arati ratri dine, ratha jatradi mahotsava sava sikhaita kon jane. Who else would have taught them how to worship the deity form of the Lord Hari day and night with Arati Kirtan, and how to conduct Rath Yatra and other grand festivals? Gita Bhagavata Chaitanya Charita Premamrita Rasasara Katana Sundara Sarala Kariye Ke Bujhai Tyara. Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita contain the essence of the nectarian mellows of love of Godhead. Who else would have explained these scriptures so clearly and beautifully? Kata kashta sahi pritamane rahi keba dita harinam ke dita modera puri vrindavan mayapura matadam. Who else would have tolerated all difficulties and distributed harinam with a pleasant heart? Who would have given us dhams such as Mayapur, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri? Parama Mangala Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhura Shiksha Dan, Acharya Prasare Sada Amadera Ke Karite Niyojan. The teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu constitute the greatest and most auspicious treasure. Who else would have engaged us in constantly practicing and preaching it? Prema kalpaturu nitai gaurera kripa kono labhivare, nirabadi jayapataga hridaya tomare sarana kare. Sri Sri Nitai Gaura are desired trees of love of Godhead. Desiring a drop of their mercy, Jayapataka's heart incessantly takes shelter of your divine grace. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for keeping me at your divine lotus feet, giving us shelter, giving us your body, the institution of ISKCON, and all of your loving devotees who take care of us how to progress in Krishna consciousness and love Krishna and love you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Achyutanand Prabhu. We request Krishna Prabhu to please make the offering, and in the meantime, Gaur Hari Prabhu can be ready, please.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's life, every moment was, as we know, full of deep compassion, unflinching faith in his Guru and Krishna, determination, visionary, optimistic yet practical, and very tolerant. So his whole story has been most inspirational and a stirring saga. I'd just like to speak briefly about that period, which within his life also was perhaps one of the most inspirational aspects, was after he reached Boston on 19 September 1965, and before he went into Matchless Gifts in July 1966. Those 10 months, which of course they are covered in the book but not much spoken about, but really perhaps gives the essence of, I wish that atheistic friend of Nandadullah Prabhu could read this part if nothing else. That, he stayed 1 month in Butler, Pennsylvania from September 19 to 18th October. He was not wanted there. His arrival was a shock to the Agarwals. This is in Sally Agarwal's own words. He was put in the YMCA because, as she said later, that, what would we say to our neighbors and to our friends? How do we explain? From the YMCA, he had to come every day, walk half an hour just to cook at their house, twice a day, morning and evening. He gave some programs. People used to come and smoke in his presence. When he came to Agarwal's house, there was non-veg in the refrigerator. Yet, in Sally Agarwal's words, Prabhupada would only say one favorite sentence of his: pay no attention, think nothing of it. When she used to get embarrassed, he would say, pay no attention, think nothing of it. So he was so practical that he was very interested in the American way of life. He was very fascinated with the supermarkets, how people were behaving, moving about, and constantly translating and typing single-handedly. This was the pre-dictaphone time. Then on October 18th, he comes to New York, stays at Dr. Mishra's place. By the way, he stayed 6 residences before he went to Matchless Gifts, between Butler and coming in those 10 months. He went to Dr. Mishra's place, somebody who had a completely opposite philosophical bent and lifestyle, whose only words used to be, he was very artfully polished image, and would, keep using the words lovely, beautiful. This was very stylish. He was always, though he was a sannyasi, he was tailored in the Nehru jackets and white slacks. But because he had bad health and Prabhupada nursed him, so somehow they became friends. But Prabhupada had to tolerate, because he was a mendicant and he was temporarily dependent on the goodwill of this Mayavadi. He had taken a shelter. So though it was a great inconvenience, but he was restricted in his speech. He had come to the USA to speak about Krishna, and he could not speak about Krishna. He posed a threat to Dr. Mishra, and that is why after some time, he went to Dr. Mishra's studio, which was about 20 minutes away. Again, the studio was windowless, no stove, there was no toilet, no shower, no chair, no bed, no telephone. He walks every day 20 minutes back and forth twice a day. His routine was 2 to 3, at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock he would get up, have a bath, chant, typing. Occasionally when he used to walk between the two places, he would just look at people, observe, try and go to bookshops to see whether any sales are taking place. And because he was still feeling a little restrained in Dr. Mishra's studio, in the same building on the 3rd floor, he went there because there at least he was free. This was same austerity but even smaller place. And there he met this gentleman, this boy called Robert Nelson, who in the book is described as like a slow, simple country boy. Less understanding, simple person, didn't want to change his lifestyle, but he liked Prabhupada. And yet Prabhupada speaks to him about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Nityananda Prabhu's pastimes. Both of them would used to rest in the afternoon, facing each other. And he would take Prabhupada around because Prabhupada was interested in possible temple sites. Imagine in that period, Prabhupada is looking at what are the opportunities. He has his vision and his optimism. He particularly liked one 3-storied building. And then he started writing to his godbrother, Tirtha Maharaj, Padampad Singhania, the Sumati Murarji, Indira Gandhi. He wrote to several of them very painful letters in one way, but inspirational letters in another, to see how he would write to them. Say that there's so much scope to preach here. There's a temple that is desperately needed in New York. He said, I have not come here to sightseeing. I'm not here on my personal interest. This is for entire humanity. He was pleading with them. And he told Sumati Murarji that you will be the first in history. This was his vision. He said, you will be the first in history. So, he could foresee that. Your name will be there. And he even offered what the name could be like. But there was either no reply or very polite reply saying that, well, we can't do anything. And in this time, in spite of all these setbacks, so-called setbacks, Prabhupada he had a 2-month visa, but he kept extending by 1 month. Something kept him going, his faith. And he also, amazingly, went to this South Indian dancer, Bala Saraswati, just to understand what is the receptivity of Indian culture. Imagine Prabhupada goes to a Broadway or goes and sits there and sees this dancer to understand I mean, that was the extent of which he committed himself completely to understand this, the American mindset and how he could preach to them. And then finally he comes to the Bowery because he was told that this upscale, uptown Riverside was not very conducive, and all these hippies and others were all in the, which was an hour away. So he comes there, he meets this David Allen, very quiet person, shares a loft with him. Prabhupada's dhoti was a divider in that small room between the two. That's when he started his Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. This place is described in such a dramatic way in Satsvarup Maharaj's book. There's several bums around there, generally at the entrance, the vomiting, the strong stench of alcohol, urine. Anyone would come in, every day. This was like just permeating the air. But when they went into his fourth floor apartment or this loft, there was a completely different atmosphere. There was nothing inside, but just meeting Prabhupada, this holy man sitting on that, in front of him he had this his peti, and there was whoever interviewed said that there was something unusual. People who came there were hippies, musicians, they were into drugs and illicit sex, and drug-induced meditation. And Prabhupada is talking to them, preaching to them strongly. Basically, they were all anti-Vietnam War, and Prabhupada is telling them about why Arjuna fought for Krishna. And, many left because Prabhupada spoke these. Prabhupada never wavered from that. And yet he kept on extending his visa 1 month at a time. And then finally that incident in David Allen's, suddenly this quiet boy becomes a demon. He got drug-induced and he just attacked Prabhupada. Prabhupada at that age ran down 4 stories. By the way, before he had in fact also got his typewriter and his books stolen in the earlier apartment. That's why he came to the Bowery. And then David Allen chased him, so Prabhupada ran down. And you can just picture this 70-year-old man who was extending his visa, has come here, his only desire was to preach, comes on this road, and then doesn't know whether he should go left or right. He has literally, completely on the streets. He has no way to go. There was one gentleman one person who was coming there, black-bodied boy who had some interest, called Carl Jurgens. So he went to his place, stayed some days. Now this person was a friendly person, but his white girlfriend, she was very hostile and extremely rude to Prabhupada. I mean, from the first moment, Prabhupada had to tolerate that, because they used to keep cats and dogs in the house, and Prabhupada mentioned that, it is not very healthy. They had meat there, and his views on, sex and other things, she was very opposed to it. So after tolerating that, then Prabhupada comes to, and one of the other people who came there was Michael Grant, that is later Mukund Maharaj, who helps find him the matchless gift. Prabhupada moves there. And what does he do? He moves in July, June, July, he moves in 1966. And within a month, in spite of all these difficulties, in one side, it was like a blind alley. But this is 2 months before he even had his first initiation in Janmashtami of 1966, that was September 8th. But 2 months before that, he forms ISKCON. And the charter, the 7 purposes, if you read today every word of it, it's unbelievable. 55 years later, you cannot change a word. Everything is pertinent, in fact, even more pertinent now than it was at that time. So it's proof that actually, as Prabhupada said, that Krishna was writing for me. I was just his instrument. So this is what we belong to. This is our Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, our eternal Shiksha Guru, if we choose to have him. And Prabhupada finally said in the last few days, I want to die on the battlefield. He spoke this in 1977, but from the very first moment of his life, and especially after coming to USA, every moment for him was a battle. So I just pray to Srila Prabhupada that I can be sincere and faithful to his great mission to my last day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. We request Gaur Hari Prabhu. And after that, we request Amritna Mataji to be ready.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, on this most auspicious day, I would like to deeply meditate on few of your beautiful exchanges, in which you reveal the profoundness of your love for Krishna and your genuinity in every interaction you had with devotees. These are stories I've heard so many times, but then the details in these stories are very touching and actually speak greatly about your genuineness. Gargamuni Prabhu shares that in the beginning, there were few devotees who were assisting Srila Prabhupada, and most of them would just come and have prasadam. So Prabhupada, Gargamuni Prabhu once asked you, what can I do for you? And Srila Prabhupada, you said the duty of a disciple is to assist the spiritual master in his work. Now, you very innocently chose the word work, but Gargamuni Prabhu couldn't make of what work means. Because he was wondering, where do you go for a job? Where is your job that he'll come and help you there? But Gargamuni Prabhu kept reflecting. And then he said that one thing you do is translate books. And you use a typewriter. And you use your index finger, one at a time you type the character. I've seen my father typing, and our entire family makes fun of him when he types with a simple index finger. So Gargamuni Prabhu was wondering, how long will you take to translate books this way? And there were a couple of stores he would walk down where the Back to Godhead magazines were placed. He would go and check at those stores how the sale of Back to Godhead magazines were. And once at a shop, he found some different devices, and as Krishna Chandra Prabhu mentioned, he found this miniature small recorder, and it said dictaphone. So Gargamuni Prabhu reflects. He asked this shopkeeper, what is this? What is this dictaphone? The shopkeeper said, lawyers and doctors use this. And what do they use it for? Well, they have a lot to write. So immediately, it struck to Gargamuni Prabhu that this could be procured for you. And he said it actually cost quite a lot, $150. And he purchased it. He spent an hour with the shopkeeper understanding how to use this. He comes to you, and you very confidently take it and are able to use it without any help from the manual. And Gargamuni Prabhu is completely surprised. What took him an hour, you get extremely familiar with this dictaphone device and get started. However, Gargamuni Prabhu shares that lots of reels got accumulated from this dictaphone, 6 to 7 reels. So books are getting recorded, but who's going to type them? And the moment this thought crossed the devotees, he explains that there was one student, Neil, who came from the college there, local college, and he had a 3-month internship. He had to spend some time with a religious organization, create a thesis, write a paper. So immediately they asked him, Gargamuni Prabhu and the devotees, do you know how to type? He said, yes, of course I know how to type. And as I understand, in those days, you had to move the typewriter by using a foot pedal. Do you know how to operate a dictaphone? Yes, I know how to operate a dictaphone. And there he got started, 60 words per minute. And gradually, all the reels got exhausted. So Prabhupada, your genuineness, simple genuineness, such simplicity. It's not that you created, enhance your jargon so that people around you could understand what you were trying to communicate. You are simply stuck in your service. And whatever was needed to be communicated, if arrangements had to be made, they were made. Likewise, there are many beautiful instances. Brahmanand Prabhu, he wanted some Vyasasan for you. So he went on the street, he found some cushion, placed it there, and lo and behold, you had no qualms about using it. Yamuna Mataji explains that during the first Rath Yatra in 1967 in San Francisco, there was a cart, there was this mini truck that was as it was climbing up the hill, the engine stopped, the flatbed truck, the engine stopped. Now the devotees were totally frantic. But you had such a simple, unassuming understanding. You said, this is not surprising, this happens. In Jagannath Puri, Lord Jagannath always decides to stop when he wants to actually enact pastimes with his devotees, he stops, the Ratha stops, it cannot simply move. So you have this amazing total absorption whereby even very difficult situations, you turn them into experiences of remembering Krishna. One very interesting episode, Damodar Prabhu, your disciple, explains how once while reciting pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Krishna Leela, you went into a trance and you were basically saying how the cowherd boys, how the gopis, they're simply remembering Krishna, 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 Krishna. And of course, you went into a trance, devotees were totally unprepared for this. And Damodar Prabhu shares that how the devotees actually thought that you have Krishna painted in the inside of your eyelid. That's why you are seeing Krishna all the time. Now, it might sound very naive to us, but Prabhupada, this also shows the deep, profound impact your simple absorption in Krishna, your profound absorption in Krishna had on all the devotees. I'd like to conclude with another beautiful episode I remember. I've heard this from some of the devotees who were there in Silicon Valley. So one of the disciples, Vaikuntha Prabhu, in Montreal, the Montreal temple was going through financial crisis. There was no money. So you told two of your disciples, I think Pradyumna Prabhu and Vaikuntha Prabhu, that why don't you go to the Indian community, their well-wishers, ask them for some donation so that you can use that to sustain the temple. And now Vaikuntha Prabhu, he didn't know how to do that. It was very awkward. He had never done this before. However, because of your genuine desire, Vaikuntha Prabhu kept reflecting, and eventually he remembered that how he would go to at airports whenever he had difficulty, he would ask passengers, fellow passengers, for small donations, so that small contributions, so that he could buy his ticket. So he just did this. Whatever he knew, he did. He went to the airport and asked passengers for small contributions. And he explains that a few $100s he got that day. And now all this was not brought to your attention immediately. Almost few years later, 4 or 5 years later, you acknowledged this contribution of Vaikuntha Prabhu. You said that, I remember when you raised the money to save the Montreal temple. And this was absolutely touching to Vaikuntha Prabhu. So your genuineness rubs off so much on devotees that they exhibit it up to their last breath. And not only that, you are able to acknowledge the genuineness of these devotees. So my humble request to you at your lotus feet today is, may I become more and more genuine in my practice of Krishna consciousness. May I develop deep appreciation, genuine appreciation for what you have bestowed upon all of us. Thank you so much, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Gaur Hari Prabhu. We request Amritna Mataji to make offering, and after that we request His Grace Radhapati Prabhu to be ready.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, today is a day where worldwide devotees are expressing their gratitude to you for showing them the path to Krishna. You are India's topmost spiritual ambassador to the world, and you have spread Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message to every nook and corner of this planet. I was reading the book Miracle on 2nd Avenue by Mukunda Goswami, and it struck me that indeed you have created many, many miracles, being fully empowered by Sri Radha Krishna. It is a great miracle that you transformed the hearts and lives of so many hippies in the 60s who were living a degraded life and turned them into sincere seekers. It was very difficult for them to understand and comprehend your thick Bengali accent. But your purity, your innocence, your determination, and your compassion won them over, and they surrendered to you and helped you in pushing the mission forward. When asked what miracle you have done, you rightly said, I have made these hippies into happies. The miracle further unfolded when one small center in New York grew into a worldwide ISKCON consisting of temples in major cities, farm communities, and restaurants. How you inspired your disciples to dedicate their life to you and travel all over the world to preach and start centers is really amazing. You led by your example. How a single frail old man could achieve so much in just 11 years is mind-boggling. In such a short span of time, how you transcribed and translated so many books is another miracle. Today, your books are transforming the hearts of so many people. Just as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said that it is a real wonder that he could write Chaitanya Charitamrita at such an old age, advanced age, you have also said that your purports were prompted to you by the Lord. You are there with us always, Srila Prabhupada, through your Vani, through your books, through your disciples. Please keep me on the right track and keep me always engaged in your service. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you have done for us and all that you have given us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. We request Radhapati Prabhu to come, and after that we request Pritha Mataji to be ready.
Hare Krishna. Dear Srila Prabhupada, it is nothing but I am using the same term which you have taught us, your causeless mercy, that has brought me under your shelter. And the gratitude that I have is beyond expression of words. Words are but just a token, like the tip of the iceberg. So, I'm trying to say something that I have imbibed from you through your disciples, my spiritual master and God brothers, in this institution which is so glorious. You have said the Lord's glories are endless. They have no beginning, no ending. Anadir Adir Govind. And that Supreme Lord, He rests on the coils of Adishesh. And this Adishesh has more than 1,000 mouths. And with all his 1,000 mouths, if he tries to glorify the Lord for eternity, even then, he has not even started glorifying the Lord. That is the extent of the Lord's glories. You, Srila Prabhupada, are an empowered representative of that Lord. And therefore, your glories are also of a similar nature because you represent Him. And I am just an ordinary, insignificant living entity. What can I even think of glorifying you? But yet, I have to do something only for my purification. I feel at this point of time just like a small child on the seashore picking up a shiny pebble. And while the vast ocean lies undiscovered or unexplored, in the same way, I would just like to pick up one quality, and that is your magnanimity and your compassion. They are integrated. People in this world give charity. They give according to their ability, according to what they have. And some people are so charitable, they donate their entire property. But what have you given in charity? Nothing that can compare to the charities that the people of this world can do. You have given what money can't buy. And what is that thing that you have given? That is the shelter of the Lord. And not just for any one person, but for all. That is your greatest glory. And that too, through this institution of ISKCON, you have got untold numbers of people under the direct shelter of the Lord, which is unimaginable. That itself proves that you are not an ordinary person, but an empowered soul. And we are just so fortunate to come under your shelter, to gain the shelter of the Lord. You have shown all of us what is the final destination. That final destination is not trying to earn more money, making life more comfortable, but that final destination is simply surrendering to the will of the Lord. So you have given us a clear goal. You have shown us to rise above the dualities of life, to be not shaken by the pleasures or the pains, not to be disturbed by either of them. Just take that in your stride. And for this, you have given us such a simple method, and that method is simply chanting the holy name. And this can, though it is such a simple process, but yet its result is so profound that it can break the illusion which is completely covering every living entity in this world, and people are struggling, caught up in this illusion, like trapped and completely confused with the day-to-day events of their life. They try one thing and the other, but again come back to square one. And then, like a businessman, like a salesman, you have given the greatest discount. When your initial disciples told you, Prabhupada, we can't chant 64 rounds, 8 hours a day, we have to earn for our living, you said, okay, make it 32. When they said, no, Prabhupada, even that is too much for us, you said, okay, make it 16. And I give you the same result that you will get by chanting 64 rounds. Being an empowered representative, only you could have done it. Nobody else could have done it. You gave a 75% discount. And then, after that, comes your compassion. That was your magnanimity, and then comes your compassion. And your compassion is, you said, if you just do this little thing, chant 16 rounds attentively every day, and try to follow the rules and regulations that go along with it, even if you may not be very confident, even if you may not be very expert or may not be very able in doing all these things, just stick to me, catch my dhoti, I will take you through the back door. That was your compassion. Because you knew that these creatures of Kali Yuga have their limitations. So you extended yourself beyond what was humanly possible. And it is explained in the Adi Puran, Ye me bhakta jana partha, name bhakta te janaha, mad bhakta nam cha ye bhakta, te me bhakta tama mataha. That is, Krishna rejects those who says, I am your devotee, Krishna. But he accepts those who says, I am the devotee of your devotee. So you have taught us the method by which to approach the Supreme Lord just by becoming humble, submissive, and service-oriented. You have given the simple mantra, be simple, sincere, be serious, and have no ulterior motive. Having no ulterior motive means to be pure in your heart. And it is simply by the force of that purity that you have conquered the whole world. You internalized the knowledge of the Gita, and you internationalized this knowledge based on your purity. I have just tried to compress all this in a few words, offering the river Ganges its own water. The world is a trap, and caught you will be in the web of the spider, like the fly or the bee. Your house and your spouse, your children and wealth, your status and standing could be outstanding, but if you lose sight of the goal of your life, then these very things could land you in strife. Caught in this net, as you try to flourish, the spider of death will cause you to perish. But fear not, O soul, if clear is your goal, your Lord and your Master can stem your disaster. To love God and serve Him is your true goal, with mind, words, and body, your life and your soul. Ask not for gratis, for nothing is yours. He is the Master, and you His servitor. The things of this world that you may acquire Quite often in life, you do not require all your life through, does say your Guru, please God and serve Him, and you will sail through. That is the way to success in life, not chasing the horizon that's never to arrive. The chant of His names, like the sun in the sky, will wipe out the mist that covers the eye. Clear up your vision, come out of illusion, accept His grace and be free of confusion. Chant then His names, 16 in number. Wake up, dear soul, from your deep slumber. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Radhapati Prabhu. We request Pritha Mataji to come and make the offering.
Hare Krishna. I thank all the management so that you all have given me an opportunity to glorify, and I thank Krishna Chandra Prabhu, my counselor. Prabhupada, when he was in Radha Damodar temple, he was like one Babaji Maharaj, 78 years old, Hridayanandas Babaji Maharaj. He was every day hearing Srila Prabhupada at morning, 2 o'clock, crying, and he was weeping and all. So one day Babaji Maharaj came and saw that what Prabhupada is doing. So he saw that Srila Prabhupada was, that time the Radha Damodar temple, he was not like now what it is. It was like muddy and everything. So lot of muds were there, and the Rupa Goswami Samadhi was very different. So that time Prabhupada used to every day cry to Srila Rupa Goswami and pray to Srila Rupa Goswami that Rupa Goswami, please empower me so that I can preach your message to the Westerners. And he used to cry at night. 2 o'clock he used to pray, he used to sweep there at Rupa Goswami Samadhi. We are called Rupanugas, but actually we are actually Prabhupada Nuga. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, because of his prayers and his compassion, and he was so much he have done for us. So that is why he could, by Srila Rupa Goswami's mercy, we got Srila Prabhupada's mercy, and he gave to our Guru Maharaj, all our Gurus, and then we got his mercy. And Srila Prabhupada, one day, he saw that in Radha Damodar temple, one old lady, she used to every day get some water, Yamuna river water from Yamuna river, and she used to get for Radha Damodar to take a bath. So Srila Prabhupada made so many temples, ISKCON temple, and he gave us so many opportunities to so many of us, so that, we all can serve some small way, that, we can serve to our Lordship and perfect our life. And we were not knowing what is Golok Vrindavan and spiritual world. We were only knowing Vaikuntha Lokotil. But Srila Prabhupada taught us, and Prabhupada gave us access to go back home, back to Godhead. Till before that, we were not knowing what is Golok Vrindavan. We were only knowing till Vaikuntha. So thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for all your mercy. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. We have an announcement here. On the most auspicious occasion of the Disappearance Day festival of Srila Prabhupada, Book Distribution Department of ISKCON is happy to offer a humble offering at his lotus feet by the launch of the new book distribution website entitled HareKrishnaBooks.com. HareKrishnaBooks.com. Please spread the word to your contacts. Check the list of books available and place your orders. For any query, please feel free to contact your book distribution go down. So at this point, we request the devotees to stand up for the Pushpanjali program. And I request Radha Duty Prabhu or Prem Kishore Prabhu to come forward and lead us in the Pushpanjali session.
ॐ अज्ञाना तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वतीति नामिने। श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दयिताय कृपाब्धये कृष्णसम्बन्धविज्ञान दायिने प्रभवे नमः। माधुर्योज्ज्वलप्रेमाढ्य श्रीरूपानुगभक्तिदा श्रीगौरकरुणाशक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते। नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुगाविरुद्ध अपसिद्धान्तध्वान्तहारिणे। नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षाद् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्बारसाम्बोधे पदाम्बुजाय ते नमः। नमो भक्तिविनोदाय सच्चिदानन्दनामिने गौरशक्तिस्वरूपाय रूपानुगवराय ते गौरविर्भावभूमेस्त्वं निर्देष्टा सज्जनप्रियः वैष्णवा सार्वभौमश्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। जयतां सुरतो पंगो मम मंदमतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदाम्बोजो राधा मदन मोहनो। दिव्याद् वृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमादः श्रीमद्रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थो श्रीमद्राधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेवो प्रेष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानो स्मरामि। श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भी वंशिवटतटस्थिता कर्षणवेणुस्वनिर्गोपी गोपीनाथ श्रियेस्तु नः। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So we'll now offer Pushpanjali. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Esha Pushpanjali. His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarayana Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Esha Pushpanjali. Srila Prabhupada Tirubha Maha Mahotsav ki jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे एष पुष्पांजलि His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Samsaradava nalalidaloka Tranaya karunya ghana ghana tvam Samsaradava nalalidaloka Tranaya karunya ghana ghana tvam Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasa Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Shri Vigraharadhana Nityanana Shingaratan Mandirmarjanado Yuktasya bhaktan sarayunjatopi Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Chaturvidha Sri Bhagavat Prasado Swadana Tripta Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritvaiva Tripte Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhavayor Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Pradikshana Swadana Lulupasa Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Nikunja Yuno Radikali Siddhe Yayali Bhidiyo Tirapekshanija Tatrade Daksha Dhati Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda साक्षाधरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्धे किन्तु प्रभुर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरु श्री चरणारविन्द यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वां तस्य श्रीसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरु श्री चरणारविन्द 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 जय प्रभुपदा 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 जय प्रभुपदा जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय प्रभुपाद नीताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य दिशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Jai Om Vishnupada Prabhuhans Prabhupada Stotra Shri Srimati Divan Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवश्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजवंशी वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीप मायापुर धाम की जय, पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा मैया जमुना मैया की जय, भक्ति देवी श्री तुलसी महारानी की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, श्रील प्रभुपाद तिरुभा महामहोत्सव की, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gaura.
Hare Krishna. Now we will be having the offering of His Holiness Radha Swami Maharaj. So all of us can turn towards the deities and there we can hear Maharaj's offering.
He was to each and every Srila Prabhupada, being the preeminent Shiksha Guru, is essential for us to understand and imbibe in order for us to actually represent his service to his Guru Maharaj. Just like the root of a tree, if we water the root of the tree, the part of the tree is satisfied. The branches and the twigs and the flowers and the leaves. And yasya prasada bhagavat prasado. When Srila Prabhupada is satisfied, then our movement will flourish. When Srila Prabhupada is satisfied, then Krishna will be satisfied. And only then, individually, collectively, will we be empowered. Srila Prabhupada established this movement in 1966. And in doing so, he was making an offering to his spiritual master in the disciplic succession. At that time, he envisioned an international society, and he organized ISKCON in spirit and in form in such a way that it would sustain through time for the purpose of spreading the holy name of Krishna throughout the world. Srila Prabhupada, in his own words, by his own example, he explained that he was simply trying to execute teaching by his example, every aspect of devotional service. And especially at this time, he's teaching us how to reciprocate with our spiritual master after he departs from the physical world. And Srila Prabhupada first begins by saying that in Krishna consciousness, there's disappearance and appearance are non-different, because the spiritual master never leaves a sincere devotee who is striving to serve him. But at times he would say, everything you need to know is in my books. And Srila Prabhupada asked the devotees to sing Jaya Nilo Premadana, the song of the departed Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada explained very briefly the history of his relationship with his Guru Maharaj. How in 1922 he received the instruction to spread Lord Chaitanya's message in the English language all over the world. And he said that this is a memorable day. What my Guru Maharaj desired, I am trying a little bit. And you are all helping me. So I have to thank you more. You are actually representative of my Guru Maharaj because you are helping me in executing the order of my Guru Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada was audibly crying on this recording when he said, thank you very much. What Srila Prabhupada gave to us in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement and how profoundly thankful he was to each and every devotee who assisted him. Srila Prabhupada, being the preeminent Shiksha Guru, is essential for us to understand and imbibe in order for us to actually represent his service to his Guru Maharaj. Just like the root of a tree, if we water the root of the tree, the part of the tree is satisfied. The branches and the twigs and the flowers and the leaves. And yasya prasada bhagavat prasado. When Srila Prabhupada is satisfied, then our movement will flourish. When Srila Prabhupada is satisfied, then Krishna will be satisfied. And only then, individually and collectively, will we be empowered. Srila Prabhupada established this movement in 1966. And in doing so, he was making an offering to his spiritual master in the disciplic succession. At that time, he envisioned an international society, and he organized ISKCON in spirit and in form in such a way that it would sustain through time for the purpose of spreading the holy name of Krishna throughout the world. Srila Prabhupada, in his own words, by his own example, he explained that he was simply trying to execute the order of his spiritual master. And he said that he saw each and every one of his devotees as a representative of his spiritual master. So all the leaders of ISKCON and all the devotees of ISKCON in this generation and for all generations to come, we are all meant to assist Srila Prabhupada in assisting his spiritual master. That is what ISKCON is. Srila Prabhupada gave us his books. He called his purports his devotional ecstasies. At times he would say, everything you need to know is in my books. How important it is to have this foundation of Prabhupada's purpose. Prabhupada's the founder, Acharya, and his books are foundation to our society. To study Srila Prabhupada's books, to preach the words of Srila Prabhupada's books, and especially much chitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam, katyam tashtamam nityam tushanti charamanti cha, to share these teachings with one another. And Srila Prabhupada, he established this international society for Krishna consciousness. And one of his last instructions before he departed from this world in Vrindavan was, you will show your love for me by how you cooperate for this mission to carry on. Srila Prabhupada talked about the mission of his Guru Maharaj, how we cooperate to move forward the mission that he has to assist his Guru Maharaj is really what is meant to be our very life and soul. Srila Prabhupada cited Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary of the Bhagavad-Gita verse, Vyavashayatmaka buddhirekeha kurunandana bahushakahyanantascha buddhayo vyavashayanam, that we must be resolute in purpose. Our aim must be one if we are on the path of bhakti. And that means to make the order of one's spiritual master, one's life and soul. Srila Prabhupada exemplified that in such an unprecedented historical way. And he entrusted that same instruction to each and every one of us. To please Srila Prabhupada is the way that we all make spiritual progress. To please Srila Prabhupada is the secret, the open secret of how our movement will be empowered to expand, both internally and throughout the world. Srila Prabhupada established a GBC. It wasn't just a ritualistic idea, it wasn't just a managerial concept. It was especially to preserve the international unity of our movement. He requested the GBC very much to focus on the idea of unity in diversity, because there is so much diversity. During Srila Prabhupada's time, there was so much diversity. So many different devotees coming from different backgrounds with different conceptions. Well, Srila Prabhupada united everyone. How were we united during Prabhupada's life? Even though there were so many different opinions, even at that time, on so many different matters, because ultimately we were together to please Srila Prabhupada. He was the heart, he was the center. And that is very much the principle that we need to understand and apply today and for the future. In order for our movement to be unified internationally, we need to all be focused on how, as the servant of the servant of the servant, to please Srila Prabhupada. During Srila Prabhupada's time, there was only a handful of people who had direct, intimate association with him, getting physically direct instructions. The vast majority of Srila Prabhupada's disciples were the servant of his servants. And that's how Srila Prabhupada established our movement. And that is continuing today. All of the gurus, those devotees who are taking the service of serving our society by initiating people, those who are Shiksha gurus, those who are serving our community by repeating Srila Prabhupada's words by example and teachings, those who are temple presidents, GBCs, in congregation, all of us, our life and soul is simply to assist Srila Prabhupada. This is very important. Sometimes the diversities of ISKCON cripple our unity because we don't appreciate this principle. If disciples of different spiritual leaders
of what you're saying
are fighting with
or
one
at least implying.
Actually, Gopal Bhatta Prabhu, what I was trying to say is what you just so eloquently spoke. Thank you very much. Yes. What Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado. what will please Srila Prabhupada
That Krishna
is what will please
consciousness is
Krishna.
spread in every town and
What will
village. That was the
displease
order.
Srila Prabhupada is what will displease Krishna. And Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, he, in this beautiful lecture that I just referred to, he's crying in gratitude to his devotees. Now, this took place in 1973. So probably most of the people that were there in the room and most of the people who were listening from little cassette tapes throughout the movement, most were only devotees for 1 or 2 years. The senior most people may have been devotees for 4 or 5 years at the most. And Srila Prabhupada is crying with gratitude. Thank you very much, he says. You are all the representatives of my Guru Maharaj. If Srila Prabhupada is seeing all of us, and at that time, we had so many faults. Of course, many of us still do. But in 1973, devotees were not very well trained yet. And still, he was seeing each of us as representatives of his Guru Maharaj, and he was crying in gratitude. That's how much he felt obliged to anyone who was assisting him. And that's an eternal principle. So all of us, if Srila Prabhupada loves his devotees so much, how much that should affect our hearts to give honor and respect and try to the best of our ability to appreciate the devotees with whatever faults they may have. Of course, Srila Prabhupada, he corrected our mistakes whenever they were there. And similarly, leaders must correct mistakes and discriminate in the sense of what is appropriate in Krishna consciousness. But it is done in the spirit that Srila Prabhupada has given us to really appreciate those who have given their lives to assist him. And today it's Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day, when we're feeling profound separation from Srila Prabhupada. And our connection to Srila Prabhupada in separation is in our service, how we're trying to please him. And now, 43 years since Srila Prabhupada departed in Sri Vrindavan Dham, so many of Srila Prabhupada's very intimate, loving followers have left our movement. Many of his greatest leaders, too numerous to even speak of appropriately. Just in the last couple months, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Madhurya Govinda Maharaj, His Yasomati Nandan Prabhu, Krishna Nandini Devi, Ramdas Abhiram Das Prabhu, Rama Devi, Nitai Chaitanya Maharaj Shruti Dharma Prabhu. These are people who embrace to the core of their hearts Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And Krishna has taken them away. within the last few days, or at the most the last couple months. And then we think of so many of Srila Prabhupada's beloved disciples who have left us. And it's a door that opens in our view of what the future of ISKCON really could be and should be. To appreciate one another, to cultivate love for one another, to serve in cooperation with one another. It's so very important because padam padam yadvi padam natesham, any one of us, whatever our age, whatever our health condition, we could die at any moment. Srila Prabhupada quoted from Govinda Das, the great Kaviraj, Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala Bhajahun Hari Parani today. That everything in this world, our body, our skills, our youth, our beauty, our family, our wealth, our position, whatever roles we may have, it is all like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. At any moment, not maybe, at any moment, it will slip away. So what really is the value of wasting time, holding on to our egoistic or selfish perceptions? The time is now, immediately, to really take seriously that Srila Prabhupada, he left Vrindavan. He endured the hardships of the Jaladuta. He endured traveling around the world, health crises, so many dangers, so many heartbreaks. He endured them all to entrust us with his movement. It's the most important thing we have, to waste time with pettiness, whether it's philosophical pettiness or managerial pettiness or social pettiness in our relationships. It's a great loss. Yes, so many these beloved devotees, preachers, initiating gurus, artists, mothers, fathers. In so many ways, these dear disciples and grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada have been taken away from us physically, and especially at a time when it's Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. In order to really go into the mysteries of what pleases Srila Prabhupada, we need to really appreciate the devotees that are around us and the devotees that can leave us at any moment. And there's no time to waste because all of us could leave it all at any moment. To assist Srila Prabhupada in the order of his Guru Maharaj. That is the life and soul of all true followers within ISKCON.
This urgency that you are implying and actually even directly speaking to, how do we develop this urgency? How do we develop this at every moment?
like a little seed, requires cultivation and protection in order to grow. This urgency to reciprocate with Srila Prabhupada's love is inseparable from our Bhakti Lata Bija, from the seed of love of Krishna that is within our hearts. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Rupa Goswami that the Guru awakens the seed of love of Krishna in our heart and then teaches us how to cultivate it. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to all of us through Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, in the Nectar of Devotion, in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and in the example of his life, has given us the way to cultivate the seed of love, that we need to water it. And that watering is by associating with sincere devotees. Adoshata tata sadhu sangota bhajanakriya. We need the association of each other. We should never take it cheaply. We should never take it ordinary. To associate with those devotees who actually inspire us to take shelter of Srila Prabhupada's instructions, to chant the holy names of the Lord. At the times of initiation that Srila Prabhupada, he asked us to follow these 4 regulative principles and to chant at least 16 rounds every day. And in Parampara, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, all the initiating spiritual masters of ISKCON are repeating the same instruction, giving the same duty to chant at least 16 rounds and to follow the 4 regulative principles. And Srila Prabhupada had us recite the 10 offenses to the holy names. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught that as we're hearing the glories of the Lord and chanting the holy names of the Lord regularly, according to the instruction of our Guru Maharaj, we have to be very careful of the weeds. And he described many weeds: the desire for profit, adoration, distinction, fame, the desire for accumulation of wealth for our selfish purposes. And one of the weeds that he emphasized most was criticism of Vaishnavism. In today's world with the internet, there's so much gossip and so much criticism. Srila Prabhupada himself at one time, I think there was this, I don't remember, telex or something. There was this particular type of international way of communicating, and they asked Srila Prabhupada if they could do it, and Prabhupada said, no, you will simply indulge in prajalpa, or unwanted gossip and criticism. So the internet today and the very propensity that is in our hearts in today's world is to find faults and to criticize. And if we do it with the wrong intention, then it's an aparad, it's Vaishnav aparad. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said it's a mad elephant offense. We should be very, very careful not to commit these offenses. So these are the ways we cultivate this sense of urgency by developing faith through association of devotees, by watering that faith through our sadhana, through chanting the holy names, through reading Srila Prabhupada's books and the Vaishnava literatures, through serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and by very carefully avoiding offenses. And if we're in a prayerful mood, praying for this sense of urgency to surrender and seek shelter, then if Krishna's pleased because Srila Prabhupada's pleased, because we're the servant of the servant of the servant, we're pleasing those who Srila Prabhupada loves, Prabhupada will be pleased when we serve and please those he loves. Then that type of conviction, that love of God that's within us, Krishna awakens.
I'd like to ask you a personal question. Sometimes in meetings or even a couple of times in this interview that we're doing, you appear to be praying. Is prayer a big part of your life and your devotional practice? It seems to be, but I've never really asked you that question.
As worthless as I am, I do believe that Krishna hears all of our prayers. And even though my prayers may have so many defects, I really believe it's the only thing I know how to do. And whatever I can accomplish in this world, it's only Krishna trying to compensate my lack of qualifications in answer to prayers. The Srimad Bhagavatam, all of the great teachers, Prahlad and Dhruva and Ambarish and the Pandavas and Kunti, the gopis, the gopas, so much of what they teach us is in their prayers. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, he established our movement on the Jaladuta when he offered his prayers, praying to be a puppet on the strings of Krishna and his Guru Maharaj's mercy. Srila Prabhupada, he prayed, and so often he cited the prayers of Kunti and Prahlad and gopis. These prayers are very much the heart and soul. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the only thing that he left us that he personally wrote with his own hands is Shikshastakam, which is 8 prayers. In order to pray appropriately, we really need to take shelter. Srila Prabhupada, he gave us this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's the very heart and soul of our movement. And he called our movement the Hare Krishna movement. And when Srila Prabhupada translated the Hare Krishna mantra, in his own unique way, he translated it as a prayer. If we literally look at the Maha Mantra, it's the invocation of the 3 names, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. Srila Prabhupada, he taught us the mood we should chant, that as a prayer, my dear Srimati Radharani, Hare, my dear Krishna, my dear Lord Rama, please engage me in your loving devotional service. We're praying to serve. We're praying for the strength to overcome all obstacles so we could please our gurus who are giving their lives and souls to please Srila Prabhupada, who is giving his life and soul to please Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And that is the way in which Krishna within our heart is pleased. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purgakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayantate. It is the way we show our love for Krishna. So we are, Lord, one of the great prayers that Lord Chaitanya taught us in Shikshastakam, Trinadapi Sunichena Taror Ibasihishnana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. And Mahaprabhu taught that we should keep this prayer always in and on our hearts. And if we chant the holy names in this prayerfulness of offering respect to others, not expecting for oneself, being humble and forgiving and tolerant, this is very difficult in an age where we're so much programmed and conditioned toward egoism and fault-finding. But this is the prayer of Lord Chaitanya. And all of our acharyas have taught us to pray in this spirit, to pray for this benediction. So in my own life, it is a great goal to learn how to pray for pure unalloyed devotional service, to learn how to pray, as Prabhupada said, like a helpless little infant baby crying for the mercy of mother. That's my goal in life, to be able to pray in that way, because then I could be an instrument of my God brother and God sister's mercy, and please Srila Prabhupada.
Well, one more question on prayer. The Maha Mantra is a prayer, yet we also, not yet, but we also pray to be able to chant that prayer. So what's the dynamic there?
The prayer and the prayer to enter into the mystery of the prayer are inseparable. The prayer is, O Shri Radharani, O Shri Krishna, please engage me in your loving service. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayor Dasa Dasa Dasanudas, that to be the servant of Krishna is to be the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. So we are praying that we could actually enter into the true spirit of that prayer, begging for the service of the Lord.
So Maharaj, we're getting close to the end of our time. Circling back to how we started, Srila Prabhupada is the preeminent Shiksha Guru of our movement. He is the founder Acharya. You've illuminated many different points. I'm just asking you to put a bit of a cap on it. Leave us with the fundamental realization that you have on this topic and the instruction that you can offer us.
Today, Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. To deeply meditate on within our hearts what Srila Prabhupada has given us and how he wants us to live. How he wants us to live in our personal life, in our interactions with other devotees, and together to serve the mission of his Guru Maharaj. This particular day of all days of the year is very special to meditate. What does Srila Prabhupada want us to do in our lives? Everything else is relatively superficial and unimportant. Our life and soul To be grateful to Srila Prabhupada is not just saying Jai Srila Prabhupada. To actually be grateful to Srila Prabhupada is to live in the spirit of his instructions. Our movement is simply a community, hopefully an ever-expanding community of devotees who are trying to live in harmony with Srila Prabhupada's instructions. In doing so, Sri Radharani, Sri Gopinath, Panchatattva will bless us. The temple of the Vedic Planetarium in Mayapur, devotees there's no way it could be built unless devotees come together from all over the world to help, because that's the way Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda wanted it. Srila Prabhupada often cited that Bhakti Vinod Thakur, it was his desire, it was his dream that devotees from the East and the West would all be coming together in unity in Sri Mayapur Dham to chant the holy names of Sri Krishna and Sri Radha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the most merciful, the most munificent of all incarnations, and the very essence of what he taught us is what Srila Prabhupada is giving. How to show our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. That's what's most important. In today's world with this COVID-19, any one of us could die at any moment. Many of us are locked down. There's economic conditions. There's uncertainty. There's confusions. What is really important in our lives? And how and we can be seeing in today's experience how much the world needs the gift of Srila Prabhupada. To be grateful and to express that gratitude by showing our love for Srila Prabhupada by how we follow his teachings. As servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. In this spirit, we can take shelter of the holy names of Krishna, and love for Krishna becomes our supreme reality.
Maharaj, thank you so very much for your valuable time.
I'm sorry I'm so insufficient in my attempts, but I'm
No.
grateful to be among everybody that is assembled today.
It was just absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What Srila Prabhupada has given us and how he wants us to live. How he wants us to live in our personal life, in our interactions with other devotees,